Welcome to episode 2 of Overcoming Objections in Your Sales Conversations. If you missed part 1, then take a moment to catch the goodness that I shared with you last week. Just to recap, in this series, I'm talking about objections we get in our sales conversations and how to handle them. In the last episode, I started out with how we have our own objections that we wrestle with and how it's up to us to look at what comes up for us in the way of resistance. And when we do, this helps us become more proficient at handling our clients' objections, even our potential clients' objections. It's really a win-win situation and can be so helpful for us and them. The most objections we get come in 3 categories: money, time, and checking in with someone else. So let's jump back in. One of the best ways to diffuse an objection is to agree with them. No one needs everything you offer. Listen first to the outcome they want, then show them how you can get them to better than that, or just even to that. But whatever it is, a better outcome is going to happen if they go with you. So one of the best ways to handle most objections is with the process that I learned a while ago. And I can't seem to find the reference for who started it. However, I learned it from Alan Berg, and it's so simple yet so effective. And there are 3 parts to it: feel, felt, and found. You want to feel. So you want to empathize with their situation. There's felt, so you show them that others just like them have had this same thought. And found, and that is what you wanted to say to overcome the objection, but doing that right away would be more kind of confrontational. So now, what does this mean? This is what we're looking to create with your buyers. And I'll show you in a bit how the feel, felt, found comes into how we respond to the objections that come up. So have you ever had that moment when you're meeting with someone and they say, "Oh, this is great. I'm all in and I'll sign tomorrow." And then they float away and they ghost you. Well, what I want to do is show you how not to have that experience, because where you are is in a moment of truth with somebody at that point, not where they're in resistance. Now, remember last week I said the one thing I've learned is to be prepared and positively expect resistance to show up when I meet with potential clients, and not to be surprised when it does come up. So I know now that I get to choose what to do when these moments arise. In my own way, I've been able to start to decide what is or is not a priority for me. And it's a freeing feeling when we can choose. This is not an investment for me. I simply say no if it's a no. Here's a great example. Several years ago, I got a call to see if I would be interested in bidding to open a flower shop in a luxury hotel in DC. And at first, I thought my friends were punking me, because then I quickly realized, oh my gosh, this isn't a joke. And there was a bid process, and I was one of 20 that they had asked from doing the research that they have done over other florists in the area, and who they thought they would like to have represent the hotel. So I ended up talking about it with my husband. And at first, I had a lot of resistance. I mean, what if I couldn't do it? Would I have enough money? What if I don't write a good bid? What if my proposal isn't good? Then my husband brought me back to the conversation and said, "What do you have to lose? You're at a great position with the shop now, and you've got a great team going on here. You don't have the exact cash, but why wouldn't you do this?" So then my business side kicked in, and I was like, I get to step into this without knowing and take this opportunity. Keep my mind open and ready to receive it. And it ended up that I made it to the final 3 for them to decide, and then they ended up choosing me. And I made it happen. And the money came. So here's another opportunity, though. A few years later, I got another request to bid to have my shop inside the Pentagon. And I was faced with some questions. This time, though, I went through those questions differently. The resistance I felt was like it wasn't going to be a good opportunity for me. The numbers didn't line up, and I actually said no, and it felt good, and I didn't second guess myself. Here's what happened. I made a decision. I made a priority, and then I stepped into action, and everything I needed showed up. So this is what you start to give to your potential clients when you get on a call and you hear, but I don't have the money. And why I told it as a story is because you're going to do the same thing. So here's your first assignment. I want you to write down 2 examples that you're going to bring to every single consult or client meeting when you hear someone say, I'd love to, Jane, but I don't have the money. Story number 1 is a time where you didn't have the money, but you said yes, and then the money showed up. I promise you, all of you have at least one of these stories. It may have been for a little amount or a large amount. It doesn't matter. But it was that moment where you stepped forward first, and then suddenly the money showed up. The second place I want you to find is this story is of a client or customer who purchased from you when on paper they didn't have the money in the bank and it didn't make any sense. They said yes first. The money showed up second. Because ladies and gents, that's the only way it actually works. Now, I'm not a proponent of being willy-nilly, wild and crazy, go rack up the credit cards and not actually have the money. What I'm talking about is when the thing that you know will completely serve you shows up and you are aligned with the service, with the person, with all the pieces, and you step into commitment. And by stepping into commitment, you take action first. It's nearly impossible for the money not to show up. Now, here's my asterisk to that. My one caveat, and this will save you a lot of headache when you're talking with people, is to know, is this resistance or is this a legit that they are struggling to survive? So this is the question that I ask, and this is a writer-downer moment, so go grab your pen and paper if you don't have it already. If somebody says to me, Christy, I'd love to buy. I'd love to do this with you, but I don't have the money. I stop and I say, I understand how you feel about that. So let me ask you a question because I want to do a check-in here before we go any further. Which is true for you? Do you not see the money in your account to maybe make the second payment, or you don't know how you would pay for the entire thing? Or are you right now struggling to meet basic needs? And what I'm talking about with basic needs is, a roof over your head, food in your stomach, taking care of your family. Then I stop and I let them answer. Did you see where the first thing I said was that I could understand how they feel about this? I'm going and bringing in the feel part of the conversation. This is the conversation with them, not some one-sided sales job. And here's the thing. I believe that the transaction transforms people. I still remember when I had the opportunity to buy my first retail flower shop. I had been working out of my mom's basement for 10 years, and I was dying to own my own shop. And I remember reaching out to my grandfather for the loan to buy the shop. He said no. Not because he didn't have it, but because he wanted me to experience this and do it on my own. It was devastating to me. I thought he didn't believe in me, and yet it was the best thing that ever happened. Because I suddenly took full responsibility, I did what I needed to do, and I took it upon myself to completely, personally be responsible and go find the path. So Now, if they answer that they can't even meet the basic needs, then here's what I do. And I recommend that you choose what's right for you to say. I say, here's what I want you to do. Instead of saying yes to me, I want you to go get yourself shored up with your basic needs. Then I will give them a point in the direction of a free resource or something that can help them. Because you see, I need them not to be so struggling to survive that they don't have enough money or energy to work with me and to grow with the work that we would be doing. Now, if it comes down to somebody simply not knowing how to gather the money, this is my favorite thing. And this one's another writer downer because you're going to see a pattern. So we're going to go through all of these as we go through all of these objections, okay? So I say, I've been in this situation before and I've felt exactly this way too. Would you like me to help you find a way? There. Did you see that I used the word felt in this part of the conversation? Think about it for a second. Have you ever been in a sales conversation where there's a thing that you know will solve all your problems, get you exactly to your vision, and you look in your bank account and you're like, ooh, I don't know how I can do this. You know, it's the thing that will change your life and it's what you want and you cannot figure out how to say yes? You don't want to leave that sales conversation and be like, I can't even have that or do this. But what if the person who was selling to you would say, would you like to talk about how we can do this? You would want that, right? So when you get to be that for another person, it's a game changer. Now, these are my two tools that I use this way. And again, I tell the story of other people so that they can see that somebody else has done what they're about to do. So when somebody sees it's possible for someone else, they start to believe even deeper for themselves. And this is the found part, right? We've gone over feel and felt, and now we're at found. So I've found that one of my clients had this situation, and you go into their story, okay? Or I've found when I've come up against this, I had to do this, and I tell my story. The second thing I give is a little assignment. So here's my go get some money assignment. And I tell the story. This is a great tool, and I highly recommend you use it, by the way. So I'd love for you to play this game with me. It's a fun little game, and it's a game that should be done with speed, and I put one more rule to it. You can't censor yourself. And once we do it, you need to take action on all of them. Okay? Now, I want you to write down 25 ways you can come up with the money to do what we just talked about. Now, here's why it's 25, and you can use whatever number you like. I just like to go more than 10, sometimes more than 15, because the human brain is such an interesting thing. We have the ability to almost become a magnet for all the good that we want. We can also become a magnet for all the crap that we don't want, but when we start to ask the question, how can I? Here's what happens in our brains. We literally become like a little machine of finding the way to get what we desire. So by sitting down to do an exercise of, say, how can I come up with the money? Simply by asking yourself, how can I? 25 times turns you into a resource finder. Have you ever had that moment when you start to think like there's got to be a way for me to do something, and you go take one little step and all of a sudden the doorway opens and you're like, oh wait, I know how to do that. I know how to do that. And suddenly you're on the path. That's what happens. So I ask them to write 25 ways down so that they can come up with the money. Now there's a reason why it's so many, because the first couple of ones are going to be very logical, straight lines, right? Remember how I said no censoring? Sometimes when I write down this list, I write down take a nap or take a walk. I write down what comes up with my stream of consciousness as fast as I possibly can. And again, the rule is to go take action on this. So if you want to know if this works and you want to make a little extra money in the next couple of days for yourself, I would recommend that you try this exercise yourself for fun. Put a number that is really important to you in a circle, and then write out all the ways, and then start taking action on them. The way that I like to start taking action is this. I pick the 2 on the list, the one that feels like, oh my goodness, I don't want to do that, where I have all that resistance, right? There's no way I want to do that. And then I pick the one that's the easiest. And I go do both of those first. And by doing that, it usually propels me forward to my goal. And I'm also going to tell you this, 9 times out of 10, I don't have to do all 25 to get to my outcome. So I'm going to tell you another story. This is one of how this worked for one of my clients. So I met this wonderful woman. She was in a space in her business where she had pivoted and almost nothing was working, and she was getting to that dire place, right? Some of us have been there before where the clients aren't coming and the bills are starting to go up. And she came to me and she's like, Christy, I know we need to work together. I know we have a solid relationship here. And she's like, I'm in a spot. I don't know what to do. So I said, let me give you this exercise. I want you to go do it. And I want you to take 10 days. And then let's get on a call and see how it goes. So on the call together, she wrote out all of the things. And one of the things she wrote out was to go to the bank and get a loan. And she's like, Christy, there's no way any bank is going to give me a loan. I'm a single mom going through a divorce. And I have a mortgage on my house. So she gave all of her list, and I said, remember what we're supposed to do. We get to take action on all the things. So reluctantly, she went and talked to the person at the bank. They denied her loan, of course. And then right before she was about to leave, there's something, they said, hold on, there's something strange on your account. We need to check something out really quick. And then they came back and they said, do you know you have a home equity line of credit that you've had for 7 years that you've never touched? So when they originally went to file the papers for their house, they also set up a home equity line of credit, and she had tons of equity in the house. And there was all this money sitting there that she didn't even know she had any access to. Now the fun part. She didn't even need to use all of it. She took out a tiny, tiny little portion and stepped into motion to get herself rolling again. And here's the key. Had she not gone to the bank, she wouldn't have found out about the line of credit just sitting, waiting for her. It's the other thing of sometimes when you put yourself into motion, it puts you in the path to meet other people and make other things happen. So here's another one. Years ago, I had a venue as a prospect for my event business. And I reached out to them, and invited them to get on a call in the efforts and hopes that we'll get into a working relationship that we both benefit from. And we got on the call, and guess what? It was a no. And at the end of the call, they said, oh, but you should talk to this other person I know. They could really use your services. And I talked to that person, and not only did that person become my client, they became one of my best referring clients. Can you see that when you walk in the direction of what you want, it comes with you to all of your sales conversations? And you get to do the same thing when you walk your clients through their resistance. Okay, so how do you know if I don't have the money is a true objection, or you can walk them through the resistance, or if they're simply saying the thing that they know you are okay hearing, because here's the thing about sales. Does anyone here like to hear no on a sales call? Probably not. You don't feel good when somebody goes through the whole process and they're like, here it is, and it can change your life, and you're like, no. Unless you're really, really a hard no, you're probably going to say something like, you know what? Let me look at my numbers and I'll get back with you. Or it's just a little this or a little that kind of thing, right? And then I'll get back to you because you don't like the feeling of actually presenting a no. So how do I know if somebody is blowing me off? Or if they're simply needing to be walked through resistance, and it's all about the specifics for me. Here's what I mean. When somebody says to me, I just need to go check my accounts, I think, fantastic. And say, do you need to go to the bank, or is this online? Is this something you can do tonight right after our call? You see, I ask for specifics. And if somebody answers and gives me specifics, then they are legitimate, and that's what they're going to do, and then they're going to purchase. Now, if somebody is vague and they can't nail down openly, I just need to look at my stuff, then that person is giving you the, I want to leave the sales conversation and I'm not going to buy. And then I simply allow that relief and let them go. So here's another one that often comes up, and most often it's more about the money too. I've talked to another vendor and they've given me a better price. This is where you can use the feel, felt, found conversation again. When your potential clients come back to you and say, we found a lower price with another person, what they're really saying to you is, we want to book with you, but this lower price is making us confused. Think about it. If they had found everything they wanted with the other vendor and at a lower price, why didn't they book them? Because they really want to work with you. And at this point, it's not about matching their price. And please don't get offended at them. They obviously want to work with you, or they wouldn't have even come back to talk to you. You get to remind them of the value that you're providing and what they will get by choosing you. So here's where you can use the feel, felt, found again, okay? And feel free to use this verbiage or adjust it to what feels comfortable for you. I understand how you feel, and thanks so much for coming back to me to discuss it. I had a client the other day who also looked around and found an offer for a lower price to work with them. What my client found is that a lower price point isn't hard to find, which made her realize that it's really not about the price for her. It's the person that she gets to work with that makes all the difference. And that's why she came back and started working with me. Are you ready to book with me now? We can get going on this today. You see, it doesn't matter what business you offer. This type of reply would apply to every one of them. You each have a moment where someone was on the fence and then chose you. So you get to use that story to win them and help them see the value of working and growing with you. Well, we only tackled one of the big objections today, and that was about money. So next week, we'll dive into the time and other person objections. I hope you've been finding this series helpful. Tell me what you think about the tools I'm suggesting for you to use. Are you willing to step out of your comfort zone and use them to gain new clients and grow your business? Thanks so much for listening, and I'll see you next week for part 3.